Well, I think that the trend that we saw with, massively headline-grabbing stories in 2016 around the U.S. election, and that we've seen continue in the West with both the U.S. 2020 elections and recent elections in places like Germany, it's continued, obviously. But in the emerging world, you've got other issues that are bubbling up that maybe you don't see as much in the Western countries. You have a very personal impact of disinformation in places like India, for example, where messages spreading word of mouth between people in small communities on messaging apps lead to people being lynched or to mob violence. And so I think that is also a part of the disinformation problem. And you have a larger number of governments that you wouldn't think of typically having very sophisticated malicious cyber capabilities that, as I mentioned earlier, are kind of investing in these disinformation capabilities to protect themselves, to discredit opposition, to flood the information environment with misinformation. So I think you're seeing the potential for these trends to lead to more authoritarian or authoritarian-leaning leaders finding new ways to entrench themselves in power. Back in the 2000s, the thinking was that these new social platforms would actually topple tyrants by giving people a means of organizing in things like the Arab Spring, for example. And I think now what you've seen is a kind of inversion of that. And you've got a fear now and I think a legitimate concern that it's actually going to help entrench people who are in positions of power who can marshal this kind of computational propaganda to keep their grip on their population. There's a great saying that, Vladimir Putin in Russia doesn't care if what people are reading, that the disinformation that Russia produces is true or not. If enough of it floods the information space, people don't know what to believe, and they become very cynical. And so I think that that's a thing we need to safeguard against as well, both in Western countries and critically in emerging markets.